Alright, this is a review video specifically on how to solve using completing the square. This is only a how-to video. It's going to move very quickly. It's not going to talk about why this works at all. If you follow these steps, if you memorize and follow these steps, then you be able to complete the square and work with the questions on the quiz. Let's go ahead. This was the set of steps provided in the video. What I'm going to do is to shorten these two here. That's what I'm going to do. Everything else will be exactly the same. We're going to work with the problems on Complete the Square Practice 2. This is the review. This was a review that I passed out. This is the Complete the Square part of the review that I passed out in class. We're going to work problem 1. We're going to work problem 5, 8, and 6 in this order. All right, let's look at problem number 1. All right, I'm going to move this over and adjust this so we have a larger view. There we go. Perfect. So the first step we want to do is to isolate the constant. So I'm going to do minus 10 and minus 10. What I will be left with is x squared minus 14 is equal to negative 10. A is already equal to 1, so I don't have to worry about that. Here's where the change is going to be. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this value and just cut it in half. So I'm going to write, just here I'm going to write half of b. That's all I'm going to do. Right below I'm going to write negative 7. Then here what I'm going to do in this space and in this space, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write negative 7 squared. That's going to be positive 49 and positive 49. What we've really done is the b over 2 squared and the b over 2. That's the shortened step. Now I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue with writing this here. I'm going to put x minus 7 squared. This is going to equal to 39. And then I will continue with solving. So x minus 7 squared is equal to 39. What I need to do next is to square root both sides. Remember that when you square root, you're creating a positive or a minus. So my result after this will be x minus 7 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 39. Then what I'm going to do is add 7. And I'm going to do that same thing here, adding 7. What I'm left with then, let me write that differently. I just wanted to write it as adding 7. What I will be left with then will be x is going to equal to 7 plus or minus the square root of 39. 39 does not simplify, so in this particular case, we are finished with this problem here. If we were to look at the answer bank, what we would see is here is the answer for number 1. 7 plus or minus the square root 39. Let's go back. Problem number 1. Pause this and look at it if you wish. Going to go to problem 5 now. 3 and 4 are here. You can copy these if you want to for practice, and you have the answer bank. Problem 5 is what we're going to work next. Same exact process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the 5 to the other side, which is going to leave me x squared minus 4x is equal to negative 5. A is already equal to 1, so that is complete. What I'm going to do now is simply write half of the b underneath. So half of b, half of negative 4 is going to be negative 2. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to square the negative 2 and put it in those two locations. So square of negative 2 is going to be positive 4 and positive 4. This is exactly what we did in the last example. I will then continue. I will write x minus 2, that whole quantity squared, is equal to negative 1. Now what I'm going to do is continue with my solving process. So I have x minus 2 squared is equal to negative 1. I'm going to square root both sides. Notice I've taken the square root of a negative 1. Then what I will have is x minus 2 is equal to the square root of negative 1 plus or minus. My next job is to isolate x completely. So I'm going to add 2. I'm going to add 2 here in front of the plus or minus, which will leave me x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 1. However, we cannot leave this the way it is, so I know that I will have x to be equal to 2 plus or minus I. This is the complete and final answer. If we look at our answer bank, here's the answer bank. We see that we have 2 plus or minus I here. There's the, not for number 2, I apologize, for problem 5. All right, let's go back. All right, we're going to go to problem number 8. We will come back to problem 6 and do that last. Problem 8. Here we are. Problem 8. This problem, I want to pay attention to the fact that A does not equal to 1, so what I have to do is to make A equal to 1. That 3-dot triangle means therefore. This is not to be confused with the fact that I'm going to factor when A does not equal to 1, because I'm supposed to use complete the square. So let us proceed. We will add 56. Add 56. Here, here. I will be left with 7h this time, just to make it interesting, I guess. 14h is going to be equal to 56. Now, I have to make A equal to 1 in order to complete the square. It doesn't work if it is not. So I'm going to, in this case, I'm going to divide by 7, divide by 7, divide by 7. This cancels. This cancels. This creates a 2. This creates 8. So I have now, cancels, it makes 1. So I have now h, I wanted purple, h squared minus 2h is equal to 8. I did that because I need A equal to 1. I will continue. What I want to do next is the new step where I just write half of negative 2. Half of negative 2 is going to be negative 1. My next part is to take the negative 1 and square it and put it in these two locations. Negative 1 squared is going to be positive 1 and positive 1. Then I'm going to continue with my writing. I need to write x minus 1 squared is equal to the sum here, which will be 9. What I now need to do is to continue solving, so I'm going to have x minus 1, that entire thing squared, equals 9. I'm going to square root both sides. Square root of this side and square root of this side. I will be left with x minus 1 to be equal to plus or minus. Now this time we know right away square root of 9 is going to be 3. We can take that step right now. 3. What I need to finish my solving is going to be add 1 here, add 1 here, and that's in front of the plus or minus. What I will be left with is going to be x to be equal to 1 plus or minus 3. This produces for us two separate answers. If I do 1 plus 3, this will equal to 4. If I were to do 1 minus 3, this equals to negative 2. Therefore, I have my answer of x is going to equal negative 2, 4. That's supposed to have been a 4. And I'm going to close with the braces. I just took a moment to rewrite that more legibly. Let's look at our answer bank. All right, I was looking for the solution for problem number 8, and I have x equals to negative 2 and positive 4. Here they're listed in reverse order, not a very big deal, so this is going to be the solution for problem number 8. Let's go back. The last problem that I wanted to deal with in this particular video is problem 6. Let's look at that. The reason why I wanted to work with problem number 6 is because of its relatively complicated looking original state. Alright? So, our first job is to isolate the constant, isolate the number without any variables. That is already over here. So I see that I should move this and this term to the other side. Doing that one piece at a time, I would have this. Negative 2x squared. And that will subtract with this 3x squared. What I will be left with is 1x squared plus 6x is equal to 3x minus 4. My next step is to subtract the 3x. Now you can do this in one step if you wish. I simply wanted to show it step by step in such a way that there was no confusion about what was being moved and joined with what. We're combining like terms only. Now we're in a very familiar place. I have all of my x terms on the left-hand side and my constant term is on the right-hand side. My a value is equal to 1, so all I need to do is to continue. Remember, over here I wrote half of b, so the same thing here, I'm going to write half of 3, which is going to be 3 over 2. Then what I need to do is to square that same amount and write it here and here. 3 over 2 squared is going to equal to 9 over 4. That's what I'm going to add in both locations. So I'm going to add 9 over 4 and add 9 over 4. This quantity here you can enter into your calculator and it will give you the fractional answer that we need. I'm going to continue with the writing that I'm supposed to have, which is going to be a power of 2. I am using a positive 3, cutting that in half. Here's what I have. this is going to equal to -7/4. If you have questions about how we got this, we'll deal with them in class, or you can use your calculator. Now I need to solve. So here we are. X plus 3/2, that amount squared, is equal to a -7/4. We need to square root both sides. What I will have left will be x plus 3/2 will be equal to plus or minus the square root of -7/4. Now, I need to subtract the 3/2 and minus the 3/2 here. And remember, that's going to be in front of the plus or minus. That is going to give us x is equal to -3/2 plus or minus the square root of -7/4. We're done with the solving process here. What we are needing to do now is to simplify this right-hand side. So I'm going to make a little more paper here, moving this problem up. Several things to remember. 1, you cannot leave the negative inside of the square root. 2, you can't leave fractions inside the square root. So this part only will become I. That's removing the -7/4. Now the fractional part will become square root of 7 over the square root of 4. This is with the I out front. This is important because what the square root of 4 in the denominator will become will be I need more paper, square root of 7 all over 2. The square root of 4 is going to be 2. Then what I have, I'll bring this back into the math problem, and I will write x is going to equal to -3/2 plus or minus I times the square root of 7, all of that over 2. I notice that I have the same denominator. I'm going to join my fractions. X will now equal to -3 plus or minus I square root of 7, all of this over the single number of 2. I've simply joined the fractions. The reason why I can do this is because they have the same denominator. This is the final result that I have. This is what we're going to look for in our answer bank. Let's go look. Here we are. We're looking in our answer bank. We were looking for a -3 plus or minus I times the square root of 7 over 2. Here we are. Returning once more, here is the math problem in full. Let me move up a little bit. Oops. Let me show you the entire problem. There's the full problem. Pause this. Review the steps if you have to. I want to point out one thing about problem number 4 or problem number 3 or anything like this. Here, the c, the constant, is already alone. So there's no need to move anything over. Also, problem 4 needs its A adjusted to become 1. All right? Take a moment, please. Work some of these problems. See if you can find them in the answer bank. What I will do is I will show you which answer bank question goes with which answer. Oops. And then I have problem number 9 here. All right, so here are the answers from the answer bank. The ones in red we have not done. The ones in purple we have. Please practice this process. If you have any questions, ask me in class.